What's up, my creeps? Richard here, bringing you the horror, the terror. And we are in Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville. What's up, my creeps? Richard here, bringing you the horror, the terror. And we are in Frankfort, Kentucky. I almost said Louisville, going there tonight. We're here in Frankfort, Kentucky, outside the home of John Brown. This is called Liberty Hall. Not Liberty Hall from Philadelphia. No, we're in Frankfort, not Louisville or Philadelphia. But this was the home of John Brown. He was one of Kentucky's very first senators. And in this home, who knows, we may encounter the Gray Lady. Hi folks, I am here with JB. He's the tour guide here at the John Brown home, Liberty Hall. And he's going to be telling us all about not only the Gray Lady, but some of the other ghosts that are said to haunt this very beautiful house.
Yeah. So welcome to Liberty Hall, everybody. And I thank you all for seeing the house with me. So this is Liberty Hall. This is the front entryway. Liberty Hall was established was started building in 1796 by John Brown, who was Kentucky's first senator. The Browns moved into the house in 1801. However, one of the most famous residents of the house is somebody who actually never lived here, but we believe still resides here today, along with a couple other ghosts that I'm going to tell you a little bit about. And so this was the formal parlor. This is where the Brown family would have hosted events, including funerals, weddings, things like that. It's also where the Browns would have hosted guests and had parties at. And one night in the early 1800s, one of the parties that would have happened here, a Spanish opera singer who was traveling from New Orleans and performing here in Frankfort, was invited to the house as a guest of honor for a party that the Browns were having. She was here in the house, likely would have been in this room, and at some point in the night slips out into the gardens to get some air. During that time, she walks down to the river and isn't seen again. We're not sure what happened, but people have reported seeing her in the gardens of this property as well as the backyards of some of the other properties on the block, soaking wet and running through the area, but she has never actually made it back to this house. Probably why she's seen soaking wet too. So.
Like in Beetlejuice, the way you die is the way you're going to live your afterlife.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which is why when the Maitlands fell into a river, why weren't they soaking wet?
I don't know.
Because only actors you have to spend 3 months making a movie soaking wet. That'd be a miserable experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
this area is the formal dining room. This is where the Brown family would have hosted many guests. John Brown was served as a senator from 1792 to 1805. So many political guests would have had meals in this room. Of course, the Browns were also well aware of the happenings that were going on in the young country at the time and were very involved in that. One of the other ghosts that's been seen on the property is a War of 1812 soldier. We know that the Browns were very involved in the War of 1812, and at some point hosted soldiers here in this dining room before they went and reported to the army. One of those soldiers fell in love with Elizabeth Humphreys, one of the cousins of the Brown family. However, that love was not returned, and the soldier returned to war. We do not know what happened to him. However, he has also been seen on the grounds, specifically on the porch, looking in the windows, wearing his bloody War of 1812 uniform before turning around and walking away from the property once again.
probably looking for his unrequited love.
Probably looking for his unrequited love.
Love can be a very powerful emotion and something that could draw people back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I 100% believe that.
And so this was the informal parlor of the house. This is where the family spent a lot of their time, where they would have had meals and things of that nature. It was also where the children of the house were educated. So the Brown family, both John and Margaretta, were very well educated, and at the time this of course was a frontier town, so there were not well established schools, and Margaretta did much of the teaching herself. The Browns had 5 children during the time that they lived here. When they moved to the house in 1801, they had their oldest son, Mason. A year after that, they had another son, Orlando. In 1803, they have a son, Alfred. Alfred survives 9 months and then dies of complications from whooping cough. A few months later, at the beginning of 1804, the family has another son, who they once again name Alfred. This Alfred survives for 2 months and again passes away from complications of illness. In 1807, the family has their first daughter, Euphemia. And Euphemia is described by everyone who visits the house, but by family members, friends, just people passing through, as an extremely bright and engaging young girl. Of course, after raising boys over the course of their marriage, Euphemia becomes the light of Margaretta's life. And unfortunately, Euphemia does not survive into adulthood, which we'll talk a little bit about in the next room. So this is the main bedroom where John and Margaretta Brown would have slept and spent a lot of their time living in the house. We also know that when they weren't entertaining guests, this is where Margaretta spent a lot of her time. Her personal friends would have spent time drinking tea in this room, things like that. As I mentioned, Euphemia did not survive into adulthood. In 1814, at the age of 7, Euphemia comes down with a bilious fever, something similar to a disease such as malaria. And 3 doctors come into the house, including John's brother, Preston Brown. 2 of the doctors recommend treating Euphemia with bloodletting and calomel, which is a mercury-based treatment that is not well understood by physicians at the time, although it's widely used. John's brother Preston recommends against using it, but the family goes forward and decides to use the calomel-based treatment. Euphemia does not recover from her illness and passes away at age 7, sending Margaretta into what the family describes as a deep darkness that she remains in for the following decade. During this time, many family members come to visit the Brown family to try to console Margaretta, who often shuts herself into this room, only leaving to take solo walks through the garden, where she often talks about seeing visions of her angel child. One of the family members who visited during that time was Margaretta Brown's aunt, Margaretta Barrick, who we now refer to as the Gray Lady, and we'll talk about her in the next room upstairs.
Well, speaking about that kind of mourning, that kind of loss, I can fully understand. I'm dealing with that myself, which is one of the reasons why I started this YouTube channel. When I lost my fiance last year, she was big into horror films and things like that. I knew enough just to be dangerous, but she was the fanatic. And my way of staying connected to her was to get into horror films myself, which is why I created this channel, to share my love of the horror genre, and to then go further and do things like this, which I hope those of you watching at home are highly entertained. So out of loss will come joy, is how I'm trying to bring that, but that's just how I see it.
And I think you're in a great place to really pass that message on, because as we'll get into, the Gray Lady, Mrs. Varick, becomes known as a very beloved ghost by the family. Margaretta Varick had helped raise Margaretta Brown after her own mother passed as a child, and in 1816, as Margaretta Brown is mourning the loss of her daughter Euphemia, Margaretta Varick decides that she's going to come visit and to try to help her deal with this loss. Now, at the time, Mrs. Varick is in her 70s, travels all the way from New York in the middle of the summer by horse and carriage, a very long journey, very hard journey. She arrives at Liberty Hall, she's sick upon arrival, she's running a fever, is brought into this room, and 3 days later, she also passes away. Of course, the family is already in mourning at this time. They do have a small ceremony for her, but for the most part, kind of rush through the process and bury her on the property somewhere. We do have records of Orlando Brown, one of the sons, mentioning that Margaretta Varick is at some point taken from the property and reinterred at the Frankfort Cemetery. However, there are no records of her being buried at the Frankfort Cemetery, and she has no marker there. So there is a possibility that she's still buried somewhere on the property. 3 generations after John and Margaretta live here, Mary Mason Scott, also known as Mame, who eventually becomes the last member of the family to live in this house, is sleeping in this same room. She's in her teens. She has also dealt with some loss herself already at this point. At age 7, her father, William Scott, passes away, and a year later, when Mame is age 8, her older brother, William Jr., also passes away. Now again, she's now a teenager, she's asleep in this room, and one night awakens to a lady dressed in gray standing over her bed looking at her. Of course, she screams at this unexpected visitor, but when the rest of the family enters the room, there's no one here. Mame begins to wonder if what she experienced was just a dream, if she hadn't been fully awake yet, is not sure what's going on, but over the next three nights, she continues to awaken to the gray lady standing over her bed. Eventually, she's telling this story to an old friend of the family, who smiles and says, "Old Mrs. Varick must be at it again." And over time, Mame continues to see the gray lady around the house, who also begins to appear to other members. Mame was not the first person we believe to see it. We do have recordings of the family seeing the gray lady all the way back to 1820, making it, as far as we know, the oldest recorded ghost story here in Kentucky. And Mame begins to refer to the gray lady as our beloved ghost. One of her beliefs was that Mame had visited to try to help the family to overcome this grief of the loss of Euphemia, and in passing herself was unable to help and decided to stick around to do her best to help the family as they grow up in this house. Some of the reported things that she's been reported as doing are opening doors for people with their arms full as they try to enter the house, turning lights on and off, and things of that nature to try to help out the family. And on the bed here we have some of the newspaper clippings of stories about the Gray Lady, dating back all the way to the 1920s. It was when she first appeared in print. And in the 1960s, fire affected the basement of the house. After renovating the house, the director at the time was taking pictures to document the renovations, and upon developing the negatives, notices the figure of a woman standing on the steps. Some people think that she's walking up the steps. Some people think that she's walking down. This is a reprint, so it's sometimes hard to make out, but you can kind of see the outlines of her dress there.
You can kind of see her head.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it kind of looks like she's walking up the stairs, like she's hitching up her skirt, and one arm's up and she's lifting up a leg.
Mm-hmm. There's kind of the outline of a hand. It looks like maybe coming to the railing there.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And she has been seen throughout the time, but since Ming's first sighting, she has been seen at various times throughout the house, often when renovations are occurring.
Who's messing with my house?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, I did notice you got some renovations going on now, so who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe we could see a ghost. Yeah, well, JB, thank you very much. That was I learned a lot more than I had learned just on a little website blurb that I saw last night, and you gave me a lot more information than I was going to present to the viewers. Because I came by earlier this morning and stood outside and did like a little 5-minute video talking about this, but we really learned a heck of a lot more. I really appreciate it. And so with that, folks, I'm just going to remind you, you can't take it with you, so make sure you give that gift of life. Make sure you're an organ donor. And until next time, I'll see you down the road. Hey guys, Editing Richard here. Please excuse my disheveled look. It's been a very long day. Entertaining at the ODU homecoming parade, birthday party that I did this afternoon, and then going all the way, it's Hammer, and then going all the way the heck out to the country to tear down a wedding setup that we did last night. So it's been a very long couple of days. But anyway, I just want to take this time out real quick to say hi to my kitty cat. No, she just wants to be on camera because, you know, I'm talking to you guys. But no, I just want to take this time out just to thank the Kentucky Historical Society who helped me to be able to do this little tour. JB for conducting the tour. Denise for getting in contact with JB, and then my friend Greg Hardison, also of the Kentucky Historical Society, who also helped arrange everything. So thank you guys. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the tour. And I got a couple other videos I'm putting together, but not now because Editing Richard is very tired and he's going to go to bed. So I'll just leave it at that. And roll credits.